I am Dr. Vinita Bhadoria, Associate Professor English, Government College Behror. In this video, again I will explain you about Elegy Written in Country Churchyard by Thomas Gray. In the previous video, I explained the introductory part of the poem. In this video, I am going to explain you few lines of the poem. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day, the lowing heart winds slowly over the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way, and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Curfew means stop, but here it means in medieval Europe a bell was ring in the evening to mark the time for extinguishing all fires. The time for it was about 8 o'clock in the evening. The ringing of the bell was originally designed a signal to the people to cover fires, extinguish lights, to retire to rest. Toll is the ring and knell is the death bell. End. Parting day is the day is about to finish. Herd are the cattle. Lee is the green lent. Now the explanation. The church bell ringing in the evening indicates the end of the daytime. This is the day ending. The cattle slowly return from the pasture ground. Lee is the pasture. The farmers, after working in the field for the whole day from morning to evening, gets fatigued. He walks back laboriously towards his home. The whole landscape is enveloped by darkness. The poet is the only person who is left in the darkness of village churchyard. He says that leaves the word to darkness and to me. Here, weary way is the transferred epitaph of the word weary is ploughman, not the way. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle peals his droning flight, and drowsy twinkling lull the distant fold. Now, now it's the evening time because day is about to finish. So everything which was bright is now fades, becomes dim. The darkness is spreading all over. In the evening, twilight gradually goes and darkness covers the calm atmosphere. This calm atmosphere is only disturbed sometime by humming the flying beetles and the jangling sounds which are made by the small bells attached to the neck of the cattle when they move their necks in drowsiness in their enclosure at some distance. Save that from yonder ivy mantled tower, the moping owl does the moon complain of such as wandering near her secret bower, molest her ancient solitary reign. Yonder is distant, moping owl is silent and dull. The word moping refers here to the solitary habit of the owl. Molest disturb the peace of solitude. Ancient, classic, solitude, isolated, lonely. The peaceful atmosphere is sometimes disturbed. The peace of the atmosphere is disturbed by the hooting of the owl. The owl complains to the moon about the person who are wandering about and disturbing her loneliness, isolatedness. The owl is gloomy and sullen and sits in a quiet manner on the tower covered with ivy. Ivy is an evergreen creeper, which is an evergreen creeper under the moonlight. When she is disturbed to live in her lonely place, she complains to the moon because it has been her privilege to live in isolated places since the ancient times in every country. Owl has bring here a reference. In mythology, the owl has been fancifully represented as a lady in a medieval castle under curse. She complains to her lover, the moon, about persons who disturb her in her solitude. Beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the tough in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell, forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. Beneath is here under, rugged means the twisted appearance of the elm tree. Heaves are the raises, turf is the surface of land matted with roofs of grass, and narrow cell is the grave. Hamlet is the word used for village. In these lines, Gray is telling about the poor people's grave. These are the graves of the poor ancestors of villagers. Those graves are nothing else but the heaps of earth in decaying condition. These heaps lay under the elms and yew trees. The poor forefathers of the countrymen are lying under these graves, which are covered with dry grass and uncared for. They are exposed to heat and rain. The yew trees is an evergreen tree. These are the poor people, so nobody is caring about them. The poet is standing in the churchyard, thinks of the poor villagers who were buried outside the church. The rich men are buried inside. The poet makes a clear contrast between a rich man's grave and a poor man's grave. The breezy call of incense breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw built shade, the cock's shrill clarion, or the echoing horn, no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. Breezy call means the pleasant and fragrant morning winds, sweet fragrance, incense breathing, fragrant and fresh. Morning air brings freshness and fragrance both. Twittering is chirping, singing, straw built shade, nest made of pieces of straw, shrill, loud and sharp, lowly bed, their humble graves in which the ancestors of the poor villagers have been sleeping in their grave. Here the poet is trying to explain that the forefathers of the villagers have been lying dead in the graves. Now they cannot be aroused by any sound which is made in the surrounding atmosphere, whether it is the sound of a cock which is very sharp or the sound of a bird which is only twitter. No sound is bothered them. They will not be waken up any more by the morning breeze. The breeze is pleasant, fresh and fragrant and seems to be calling on nature and meant to wake up. The swallow cannot wake them by chirping from her nest, which is made of straw and dry grass. It is to be remembered that sound of the cock is quite clear like the sound of the clarion, a wind instrument. Even the huntsman horn cannot arouse them from their graves. For them no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sigh's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. For them is the word used for the dead forefathers who are lying under the grave. No more, never. Uh, sire is father. Lisp is to utter in broken accent. For these deceased ancestors, the kitchen fire would no more be lighted by their wives. They would not get busy anymore in preparing simple dishes sweetened by love. They used to prepare these for their husbands coming back after the day's hard labor in the fields. Their little children will no more bubble loudly at the happy sight of their returning home after a whole day's absence. These small children will also not run up to their fathers, climb upon their knees, and try to monopolize their affection and kiss. In these lines of the poem, vivid and lively scene of domestic happiness painted by the poet. Oft did the harvest to their sickle yield, their furrow of the stubborn glebe has broke. How jocund did they drive their team afield, how bowed the woods beneath their steady stroke. Oft is often did the harvest yield. The rustics used to reap crops with their sickles. And furrow is plowshare. A furrow is a trench made by a plow and is here used in the sense of a plow. Stubborn glebe, hard ground or hard soil. Jocund is happily. Woods is trees here. Sturdy is stroke. Sturdy stroke. Heavy strokes or blows of the axes. In these lines, the poet describes the mode of living of the farmers who lie buried in the graves of the churchyard. In this and the previous stanzas, the poet has described an ordinary villager's family and working life. The farmers, when they were alive, worked hard in their fields. They reaped crop and felled the trees by heavy strokes of their axes. The poet says that the poor villagers who lie buried in the churchyard worked very hard on their fields. They reaped their crops by their sickles very often. They often plowed over the land in a very happy and cheerful mood. They drove the pair of oxen and horses on the field to plow it, and they felled down the trees by the heavy strokes of their axes. Let not ambition mock their youthful toil, their homely joys and destiny obscure. Not grandeur here with a disdainful smile, the short and simple annals of the poor, the boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, and all that beauty, all that wealth ever gave, awaits like the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. Ambition is vast desires. Mahatvakanksha. Mock. Mock is make fun of. Useful tile. Profession of the villagers. Obscure. Unknown. Destiny. Fate. Grandeur. Person who live in a pomp and show. An example of abstract used for concrete. Disdainful, contemptible. Annals, history. Stories of the lives of the poor people. leads to the grave and in death. In these lines, the poet says that the ambitious and wealthy people should not make fun of the simple and humble life of villagers. They should rather recognize their valuable services. They work hard and shed their perspiration or toil in the fields of corn to feed the whole community. The richer people should not laugh at the simple pastimes and delights of these villagers. They should not despise them because of their unknown and uneventful lives. The great and the grand have no right to smile contemptuously at the short and simple of life stories of these poor people. In these lines of the poem reveals the democratic feelings of the poet. Here the poet is a spokesman of the poor. The poem is rich in personified abstractions such as ambition and grandeur. Nor you, a proud, impute to these the fault. In memory over the tomb, no trophies raise, where through the long drawn easel and freighted vault, the pealing anthem swells the note of praise. Can storied urn or animated burst back to its mention call the fleeting breath? Can honor's voice provoke the silent dust or flattery soothe the dull cold ear of death? Perhaps in this neglected spot is lie some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hands that the rod of empire might have sweat. Oh, wake it to ecstasy, the living lie. In the previous lines, uh, poet is talking about the city dwellers and sophisticated people must realize that the end of every man, however powerful, glorious, renowned he may be, is death. There is no difference between rich and poor, high and low, known and obscure, great and small in the eyes of death. Nothing can save men from hands of death. All the persons who won fame and glory in different walks of life will certainly die one day. Even the entire wealth of the world cannot make them immortal. So no one has any right to mock at the simple and uneventful life of farmers. The rich as well as poor, the powerful as well as humble will die one day. In short, everyone who has taken birth has to die. Nor you. Nor you is is the poet addressing to the rich people, a proud, need not to be proud. Addressing the proud, ambitious, and showy people of cities, the poet says that they should not lay blame on the poor villagers who lie buried in the simple graves. If their friends and relatives could not erect monuments over them, trophies are the monuments. The poor forefathers of the villagers are buried outside the church, while those of the rich inside it. The poet admonishes of the rich and the proud people of the cities that they should not hate the ordinary graves of the rude rustics. Rustics are the villagers. It is not their fault that grand and majestic memorials are not erected on their graves, and they were not buried inside the church. No dirge was sung in their funeral. Dirge is the song of death. They have been buried unsung and unhonored. It is none of their fault. Society is more responsible for it. All these honors have no effect on death. Death comes to all. In the next stanza, can storied urn. Storied urn is a monument with inscriptions telling the story of history of the dead person. Urn An urn is a vessel used by the ancient people to preserve the ashes of the dead after cremation. Call is invite, the fleeting breath, short lived life, honor's voice, the words or speech in honor of the dead person, provoke, stir up, flattery, sycophancy. These are the few meanings. Now the explanation. In these lines, the poet says that nothing can bring the dead to life. Means one who has died can never be live or please them. The urn to preserve their ashes or a memorial statue cannot bring them back to life. Honors now given to them or words of flattery cannot please their senseless ears. The rich and great are honored after their death by an arm or by a statue made near their grave. The poet says that neither an urn with inscription telling their life story or any lifelike statue made in their memory can bring back them to life. Though life to those villagers who are lying dead in their graves. Then it is quite useless to mock at them that they could not have these things. He further says that words or speeches now uttered for delivered in honor of the dead cannot rouse them into action. Flattery can no more comfort their ears, which have been made already senseless by death. Perhaps in this neglected spot is lie some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, holy fire. Celestial fire is holy fire. Hence, that the rod of empire might have swayed or waked to ecstasy. Ecstasy is joy. The living liar. Wake to ecstasy. The living liar is meaning is might have become good musicians. Swayed is used effectively. Hence, villages, rod of empire, scepter of kingdom. Perhaps is referred as a surmise of the poet, neglected spot, the churchyard where the uncared for graves of the villagers are found, is laid, is buried. In these lines, poets want to say, after having shown that the poor and the rich are both alike in death, Gray in his elegy shows in this stanza that the poor are not necessarily devoid of greatness. He points out that even among these buried villagers, there might have been people born with heavenly inspiration for doing noble deeds, but destiny had unfortunately denied to them and luxury and eminence of having magnificent tombs built over their graves. Nevertheless, they were endowed with extraordinary merits. They had no opportunity to show them. Below one of these obscure graves might be resting a man who possessed a capability of ruling over a whole empire, or a man who had great poetic genius. Greatest, Greatness is not the monopoly of the rich. It exists equally in the humble. It is fate which makes some great and other obscure. These lines of the poem shows how deep the sympathy of the poet was for the poor and simple people. They possessed no less greatness than the fortunate city-dwelling talents who were blessed with opportunities. These were denied to the people living in villages. I have explained you 48 lines of the poem. Rest of the lines I will explain you in next video. Thank you.